What's up, everybody? It's Greg with Delta, and this is the Be the Difference podcast. This podcast is all about making you a better person in your life and in your business. On coaching with sales, leadership, mindset, marketing, everything under the sun when it comes to being an entrepreneur. We bring on guest speakers. Today, I've got the honor and pleasure of welcoming Mr. Liam Naden. Liam, how are you doing, sir?
Hi, Greg. I'm doing well. Thanks very much. And pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure indeed. So for those of you that do not know Liam, I'm going to talk a little bit about him. So if you really want to succeed in your life, you have to let yourself off the hook. Stop trying to solve your problems, achieve your goals, and manage your life through force and struggle. This only keeps you stuck. Instead, realize that your problems aren't your fault. They're simply the result of using your brain the wrong way. I already like this. This is going to be a good conversation. This is the message of Liam Naden, a transformative teacher, speaker, and author who helps successful people overcome their negative limitations and find fast and practical solutions to their problems. He guides them in resetting their brain and thinking creatively instead of getting stuck in their fear-based fight or flight mode. Using a unique science-based method to reset and realign the brain, Liam shows you how to unlock your natural creativity and problem-solving ability, enabling you to discover and live a truly rewarding and fulfilling life. Liam's own journey has taken him from the successes of being a serial entrepreneur as owner of more than 18 businesses and multimillionaire to losing everything and becoming homeless in his mid-40s. It was only as he rebuilt his life and wealth in a much more satisfying way that he realized the missing link to true success, the correct functioning of the human brain. He is now the host of Let Yourself Off the Hook podcast, a best-selling author and creator of Brain Rebalancing, a process which gets the 4 parts of the brain working the way they should and bringing you the success you should have. Through his coaching programs and guest appearances, he now teaches individuals from around the world to understand that there is a more natural way to solve problems in all areas of life. It aligns with the brain's ability to find creative solutions to challenges rather than attempting to fight against them. When you adopt this mindset, you achieve true and lasting success much more quickly and without the limitations of struggle and stress. As Liam will show you, true success only happens when you give up the struggle and let yourself off the hook. That is awesome. This will be a good conversation, Liam. I'm more excited.
Yeah, me too.
So you lost it all, man. What happened? I want to hear about that. I want to what happened that you were a multimillionaire, 18 businesses, you had all this going, and you plummeted?
Yeah, well, probably like you or your listeners or a lot of people in the world, I've spent most of my life being driven to be successful. Be the best version of yourself. I know you use that, and it's a great line. And it's a great mission to have in your life is you want to be the best. And from the youngest age, I didn't want to settle. I wanted to figure out, how can I be really happy? How can I have a great life, not just a mediocre life? And I studied all sorts of different things, from religion, spirituality, psychology. I got an education, self-help, personal development. I was the guy who'd go to all the seminars, read all the books, you name it, set the goals, do all of that, trying to figure out how to be the best that I can be. And I got a lot of success along the way. I became a multi-millionaire. I was an entrepreneur. As you say, I've had 18 businesses, had a lot of success, but I was missing out on the feelings of success. And not only that, I had lots of stress and problems. And I started to buy into the idea, which many people buy into, which is stress, struggle, problems. It's a natural part of success. You have to overcome challenges if you want to be successful. And you have to learn to live with pain and problems and obstacles. Now, I've since found out that none of that's actually true, which we'll get into, which is a bit of a controversial thing to say until you start to understand who you are, how your brain works, and how your life is biologically designed to be. But anyway, here I was barreling along, reaching lots of success, making lots of money. I was living in a clifftop mansion, had a holiday villa in Fiji, and had, was traveling, doing great things. But as I say, I had lots of stress, lots of problems. And I felt, well, I am successful. I'm not very happy, really, if I'm really honest. But, I'm on the track. I'll just keep setting more goals. And then in my mid-40s, series of things happened. And yeah, literally, I lost it all. I became homeless. I had to move in with my elderly mother and sleep on the sofa in her living room in her small apartment. And it was a combination of things. It wasn't one thing, but it was basically like what we tend to do as entrepreneurs. We make so many decisions, and if we make the wrong decisions, they can build up and build up till they can get to a point where it all collapses. And that's what happened to me. It was a succession of wrong decisions, business and personal. And the funny thing was, when I was homeless and had some time to think on this uncomfortable sofa that I was living on, a couple of questions occurred to me. The first one was, why has this happened to me? Because I had read every book you could think of about success. I could spout off about goal setting, about changing your beliefs, positive thinking, using your brain and using your mind in a certain way, your subconscious mind, all of these things, NLP. I'd done all of these things and all of these techniques. I had my goals all written down. I was working towards them, but it was never on my goals list to lose everything. So I said, I have all of this knowledge. I've studied this for decades, all of the books, all of the courses. What am I doing? Why has this happened to me? And the other question I had was, what do I do? How do I get out of this? Because I had no idea what to do. I had no friends or family, or no friends or contacts. All my businesses had gone. I'd moved. My mother lived in a town that I hadn't been to for many years. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know what to do. I, of course, had no money or no resources. So those two questions really puzzled me. Why had this happened, and what do I do now? But something really strange happened after that. And what it was, as I sort of came through the other side and rebuilt my life, I noticed things were quite different. And instead of before, I was really pushing hard. I was chasing after success. I was always putting in more effort, looking for new opportunities, setting bigger goals, working really hard, and having lots of problems and some success on the way. But instead, this time around, what I noticed was I was starting to rebuild a new personal relationship, which was completely different to anyone I'd had before. And I was starting to do all sorts of exciting things that even I didn't know I'd really enjoy as much as I did. I started traveling around the world. I spent 18 months living in an RV motorhome and traveled around New Zealand. Then I went off to Europe with a one-way ticket and a suitcase, and I spent 8 years sailing a yacht around Europe. And I was doing all of these things. And one of the things I noticed, that the most important thing was, it didn't feel like I had stress and problems. Things were actually working. And instead of me chasing after success, in a strange sort of way, it felt like success was coming after me. And I remember waking up and thinking, this is weird, because things just seem to fall into place. Opportunities come along, people come along. I seem to be doing the right things. There isn't the stress and problems. Things are flowing a lot better, and I'm enjoying life so much more, but I'm not pushing it. So it's like it's coming for me. Obviously, I was putting in effort, but it wasn't a struggle. And I thought, I need to figure out what I'm doing differently, because I'm doing something differently.
This reminds me of the book, The Alchemist.
Right. Okay.
This reminds me of The Alchemist, but keep going.
But what I did is I sort of back engineered and thought, I need to figure out what it is that I'm doing differently. And the one thing I'd completely overlooked as I started to research what I was doing was the thing I've all of those years I'd completely overlooked, is something so obvious, so basic, that I felt embarrassed to even admit that I'd forgotten it. But it's what everybody's forgotten. And that is, doesn't matter what you think, what your motivation is, you are driven overwhelmingly by nature. Nature rules. There are laws of nature that govern everything. And it doesn't matter how, as I say, what you think or what you try and do, those are going to determine what happens in your life. That determines what happens to everybody and everything. For instance, there's the law of gravity. Now, you know that if you walk off a 10-story building, you're going to fall down. And it doesn't matter if you pray about it, you convince yourself you won't, you're really motivated, You change your beliefs, you work on your subconscious mind. You can't go against the laws of nature. But this is what everybody is doing, most people are doing all of the time, and wondering why they're struggling, because they're not understanding and going with the laws of nature. And the overwhelming law of nature that we are governed by, and that every living thing is governed by, is the law of survival. And the law of survival says that the number one purpose of every biological organism is to survive. And the way it does that is it continually strives to be the best that it can be, so that it has the greatest chance for living the longest, for surviving the longest. And nature's provided a mechanism to make that happen. Nature has something for every living thing that's constantly working to ensure that it's the best that it can be, so that it has the greatest chance for survival, so that it lives the longest.
Mm-hmm.
And that thing is the brain. You know, your brain is this machine that is, its sole job is to make sure you live the best life possible, so you have the greatest chance for living the longest. That's it. But if you run into problems, if things aren't working right in your life, then it can only be because this machine isn't working right. Because when you don't have problems in your life, when you're being the best that you can be, that's when you have the greatest chance for living the longest. We know this. When we're happy, when things are going well, when we're not stressed, when we don't have problems, physically, mentally, and emotionally, we're at our best. There's the least amount of stress and strain on our system, and we have the greatest chance. We live longer, literally.
Mm.
So this was a big revelation to me, and the more I studied this and dug deeper into this idea that we're naturally designed to be the best that we can be, the more I saw that science, religion, philosophy, psychology, they all come at this idea from different angles, and they all point to the truth that this is actually the way it works. So what we have to learn to do is to work in harmony with nature, go with the flow, use this machine the way it's designed to be used, make sure it does its job. And this thing we call our brain, it's got the computing power of 500 trillion computer microprocessors. Now, if you said to me, or if I said to you, how about I give you a 500 trillion microprocessor computer whose sole job is to make your life the most enjoyable and the best it can be, would you want to use it?
Well, absolutely. Why not?
And if it didn't, and if it wasn't, and if you knew that's what it was there to do, but it wasn't working right, would you say, well, there's something wrong with the computer? Would you say, well, maybe I don't know how to use it. Maybe I'm not using it the right way. It's like a motor car. If someone comes along and says, here's a motor car that will take you from where you are to where you want to go easily and efficiently.
Mm.
Now, if it doesn't do that, if you get in and it's not working right, it's because you don't know how to drive it. You know, some people, if they'd never seen a motor car before, they might think, oh, I don't know what that is, but maybe I need to get out from behind and push it. And they struggle and try and get the car to move, and it doesn't move, of course, but it tires them out. And then they think, I need to put in more effort. The problem is I'm not motivated enough. I'm not trying hard enough. I'm not strong enough. And all that happens is they put in more effort and they struggle more and they still don't get anywhere. Whereas if all they knew was, you just need to know how to drive the machine the right way. And it's not designed to be hard. It's not designed to be a struggle. It's designed to give you an enjoyable trip and to get you to where you want to go.
Mm.
Then you'd think, well, the only thing I need to do is learn how to use it. And it's exactly the same with the brain. The brain is just a machine. It has one job, to make you the best that you can be, so you have the longest life possible. Excuse me. And all you need to do is use it the right way, and it's going to do that, predictably, like any other machine.
I love that explanation. That had to be very humbling to have to go back and live at your mom's house and lose everything, sleeping on her couch, and the power of questions, right? Like you had those two questions that drove you to discover this. That was the spark that kind of drove you to discover this. How do you feel that traveling played a role in uncovering what you did? And the attraction of all this success that you weren't trying, you're actually enjoying your life, You're way less stress, almost stress free. You're traveling in Europe. Why do you? How do you think that played a role in it?
The travel, you mean?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Apart from the great thing about travel is you realize you see the world in a completely different way to if you don't travel. I mean, most people get a perception of the way the world is
Mhm.
from what they see on the media, you know, or what they read in a book or what their friends are telling them, or whatever it is. And I think there's a difference also between just going on a holiday and actually being a traveler, where you get to really live in places.
Mhm.
And the things I learned about travel, firstly, everybody's the same and everybody's great. But most importantly, we live in an infinite world. It really is. We're bombarded with this idea, or if you watch the mainstream news, you're going to be bombarded with this idea that we're on a fragile, limited planet. We are fragile. We are limited. You're going to be bombarded with all these ideas, but it's not the truth. We live in an infinite planet. We are infinite beings ourselves. And when you start traveling, you see that that is actually the truth.
Mhm. Yeah, I traveled recently. I went to Spain this year in September.
That's
And
where I am at the moment.
say again?
That's where I am at the moment in Spain.
Oh, really? What part?
Where are we now? We only got here yesterday. Southwest part.
Okay, so I was in the Northeast Galician region.
All right,
So I hiked the Camino de Santiago
right.
from Sarria to Santiago, and
Wow.
we spent about 10 days in Spain, and we went and just met some incredible people. Lived It's a lot different because I've been out of the country before, where you go to like a resort and you're just there with a bunch of other Americans eating the same
Yeah.
kind of food that you would eat at home, just being cooked for you and sitting by the pool. And that's not that's you're right. There's difference between like going on a holiday and going and traveling, because
Mm,
traveling and walking that path, being to all these different towns, meeting these different people, living amongst the population there, the locals, and trying to get by through that, it was an incredible experience. Literally
mm,
opened my mind to all these different possibilities, and I feel that like coming back from it, I found a lot more success. Or success found me a lot easier. Is that
mm.
it's similar to what
Yeah.
you're saying? And so I'm like, well, maybe travel had a big piece of this, like opening your mind and actually seeing the world from a different perspective. It's almost like it takes away that limiting view, like you said. We have this limiting view that society has put on us, that the mainstream media has put on us, that we're it's so finite. But when you actually go out and travel and you see it, it makes it reality for you. Now it's like there's a whole world out there. There's so much that I can do. There's all these. We're all interconnected in some way, spiritually, and it's just a very powerful thing. So
Well, what you didn't realize probably is it wasn't so much the travel that made the difference. It's how you were using your brain differently when you were traveling.
yeah.
Because there are four parts to your brain, and I have a model for this and how they all work. And we mentioned earlier in my introduction about you have to let yourself off the hook. What you do when you let yourself off the hook and you give up the struggle is you actually activate a different part of your brain. And it's that part of your brain which has the expanded awareness and allows you to see things in a different way, in a much truer way, in a much more expanded way. Whereas when you're stuck using what I call the wrong part of your brain, which is what most people are trying to do, they're trying to create their life, not realizing they're using a part of their brain that's not designed to create their life, and that's why there's so much struggle. When you stay stuck using that part of your brain, that part of your brain is designed to ensure that your focus is very narrow, very limited, because it has a specific task to do. We can talk a little bit about that if you like, what its task is.
Mhm.
So when you're stuck in that, trying to live your life, and you're stuck in that, using that part of your brain, you don't see the big picture. You don't see the reality of what's going on in the world and of who you are. And of course, but travel allows you to do that because you're feeling a different way.
Mhm.
For a start, you're feeling full of awe and wow, isn't this amazing? And you're being stimulated by new experiences, and all of these things actually activate this other part of your brain, and that's what allows you to have a greater experience and to see things really in a much bigger and better way than you do when you're stuck with your problems and stress.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned that, there's the one part of the brain, the wrong part of the brain that we try, that's very focal. Discuss a little bit about that.
Okay, well, essentially you actually have 4 parts to your brain, and maybe I'll just give you a real quick rundown of what this model is. And all of these different parts, they all have scientific terms, but my model uses them, maps them out in a much simpler way. But essentially, and these aren't just ideas or mental ideas, if you like. These are actually physical locations. These are mechanical places in your brain where a function is taking place. So the first part is what I call your rational thinking brain. That's on the top of the head. And what this does is this stores information. So it gathers all of your experience, all of your knowledge, everything you learn in your life, and it stores it. And it puts labels on it so that you can understand and you can communicate with others as well about, there's a tree, so you know what a tree is, and you can share that, you can communicate with other people, for instance. So it's like a storehouse or a database of all of your knowledge. That's your rational thinking brain. The second part of your brain, which is located just below your rational thinking brain, is your emotional brain, your feeling brain. And this is what creates your feelings. It's responsible for all of your emotions and how you feel in any moment. The third part of your brain is what I call your survival brain, and it's at the back of your head. And this takes care of all of your moment-by-moment survival, all of the things you don't need to think about. So obviously it's all of your physical functions, like your breathing, your heart rate, and just to make sure everything keeps going. This is handled by your survival brain. But there's another thing your survival brain does, and this is really important. It manages another aspect of your survival, which is what happens if you're trundling along in your life, being the best that you can be, having a great life, and suddenly something comes into your environment that could be a threat to your survival. So when the brain was created millions of years ago, or whenever, it was lions jumping out from behind a rock. We call this the fight or flight mechanism. I'm sure we've heard of this. But this is part of the survival brain, and it's a tool or a weapon designed to get you to react to eliminate an immediate threat or danger that you have to your survival. Now, you might only need to use that once or twice in your lifetime, because this is just there only for a real immediate threat. So maybe someone comes towards you and wants to hit you, so you react. Or, a car comes towards you and you have to jump out of the way. So that's your survival, fight or flight, which is part of your survival brain. But there's a fourth part of your brain, and the fourth part of your brain is the one that very, very few people even know exists, let alone understand, even though it's taught by all of religion, all of science, all of philosophy throughout history, that this is the part that drives your life. This is the part that makes you the best that you can be, that's designed to be in control to ensure that you have the greatest chance for survival, that you survive the longest by being your happiest, not having problems, not having stress. And it's what I call your creative brain. And your creative brain, it's buried very deep in the center of your skull. It's in a separate location to your rational thinking brain or your emotional brain or your survival brain. It's separate physically. And this controls things such as your imagination, your creativity, your motivation. It's what gets you to do things. This is all your problem-solving ability is. It's where your intuition is. You get those aha moments. And many people, creative people like musicians and writers and artists, have all talked about this strange thing where they hear the music and they write it down. They don't know where it comes from. And we've all had that experience. We go, you suddenly get this new idea. Now, it's not something you've sat down and tried to, maybe you've been working on a problem for a long time, then you forget about it, and you suddenly get an idea that's completely different, and it turns out to be the right idea. So all of these things are the product of the work of your creative brain. And this part of your brain, remember, we're talking about an almost infinitely powerful, as we might call, if you didn't have higher awareness, which you do when you're activating your creative brain, you might call things such as luck or coincidence. Well, how did that happen? Oh, it just came out of the blue. I don't know how it happened. This is all managed by your creative brain. But the point about your creative brain, this is the part that's supposed to be, as I said, running your life, and you're feeling good. You're feeling in the flow, in the zone. These are things that people talk about. Things are almost effortless. You're putting in effort, but you're getting great results, and things are working well. You know, this is another law of science and nature, that maximum output for minimum input, conservation of energy. So your energy is working really well. Science has another word for this called homeostasis, which means the perfect functioning of the organism when everything is going well. That's your natural state. And it only happens when you're living in your using your creative brain. So we're all designed to have a life like that. You know, life's supposed to be an adventure, not a struggle. We're supposed to be giving ourselves the greatest chance for survival by being our best. But there's only one time when we're not supposed to be in this happy, flowing state where things are going really well in our life, and that's when the lion comes out from behind the bush. And what happens then is that all of the resources of your creative brain, when you're faced with an immediate threat to your survival, the other part of your brain, your thinking brain and your emotional brain, recognize that there's a threat to your survival. And what it says to the rest of your system is, stop being creative, happy, and excited. We have to deal and get rid of this immediate threat to your survival. We have to activate your fight-flight mechanism. And what it literally does is it sends a signal through your emotions. So your brain says you are facing a danger, so it sends a chemical to make you feel fear. Worry, stress, anxiety are all a signal from your brain that it's recognized something in your environment that's an immediate threat to you, that could kill you or harm you. And what that does, it activates your survival fight-flight mechanism, but it shuts down your creative brain, because your creative brain's not necessary. But the problem is, all of your problem-solving ability, knowing what the right goals should be for you, knowing what you should be doing for your life, having the motivation to do the right things, having all the right opportunities show up in your life, and being able to recognize the right opportunities, you can't see that. They're all blocked off from you because you're locked into your survival brain, looking to fight off a threat or a danger. And what are most people doing? You can see what the problem is. When people are feeling stressed, worried, afraid, frustrated, they're trying to create their life in that brain state, and they don't realize they can never do it. That part of your brain doesn't know what your goals should be. It doesn't know how to solve your problems. It only knows how to get you to react. So the enemy is whatever's causing your brain to make you feel afraid, to make you feel stressed and anxious and frustrated. And it's just a signal from your brain telling you, or saying which part to activate. It's saying you're faced with immediate threat, but it's been misled. We've trained it the wrong way to see threats, for our brain to see threats when they're not there. We're not surrounded by dangers and lions, but our brain thinks that we are, and that's what keeps us stressed, and it's what keeps us stuck, because we can't access the part of our brain whose job it is to bring us all the good stuff, help us make the right decisions and do all the right things. And that's why we stay stuck with problems. And you know what it's like. I mean, I remember in so many of my businesses, when I was stressed and frustrated and angry and really trying hard and trying to figure stuff out. What do I do next? What should my goals be? How do I make more money? How can I get what I think I should have? I was stressed all the time, and I made so many bad mistakes. I did so many of the wrong things, and my life was like, sure, I made some things that worked out, but it was just a struggle all the time. And I'd get rid of problems, and then more problems would show up, and I didn't realize that I was literally trying too hard. I was trying to use my thinking brain to sort out my life. And your thinking brain doesn't know. Your thinking brain only knows what you already know. It doesn't have access to infinite intelligence. And you can't access this higher infinite intelligence when you're stuck feeling stressed and frustrated. You've got to allow this other part of your brain to do its job.
So the as you're going over your story, the first thing that's coming to my mind is obviously you teach people how to tap into their creative brain, how to tap into that. Is this something that you feel anybody can do?
Absolutely, because the thing is, this is natural. This is this is where we were born to be. You know, what's happened, it's like anything, you know, like a motor car. Everybody else is, you know, imagine you come out onto a road and you look on the road and all these cars are all broken down on the side of the road. And a whole lot of, and you're driving along and it's a really uncomfortable ride, and you know, noises are coming out of the engine and you're putting in, it just doesn't seem, it's not very much fun. And nobody else is having much fun driving their car either. And there are people saying, what you need to make it more comfortable is you need electric seats or leather seats or a better stereo system or a different paint color or whatever. And people were saying, but this is the way driving in a car is. You know, you are going to break down a lot. You are going to have problems. It's not a very enjoyable thing getting from where you are to where you want to go. It is hard. It's a struggle. And if you knew, you'd probably say, if you knew how a car really worked, you think, these people, they might all be saying the same thing, but they've all got it wrong. None of them seem to understand how to drive a car and that a car is not supposed to be rough. And one of the reasons I discovered this, of course, was when I went from being homeless, or you know, having a lot, to being homeless. I went from the car being rough to the car being good. And then I thought, a car, my life, actually can be easy. It can be stress and problem free, you know. And then the more I delved into it, the more I realized that's the way we're naturally designed. We're supposed to have, if you look around the rest of nature, there's not really any struggle or stress. Animals, birds, creatures, they're all doing what they're supposed to be doing and keeping everything in perfect balance. It's only us who struggle with problems. And so it was only when I experienced a life where it wasn't without struggle, and I made a lot more progress and was a lot happier and a lot more productive and doing a lot more exciting things, I realized, well, maybe there's something about everybody's being told the wrong thing, you know.
How what's the process, if you can break it down in as I guess simply or concisely as possible? What's the process that you use in order to help people to start unlocking that part of their brain or to tap into it more efficiently?
Well, there's really only three things you need to do, and this is what I teach people. The first one is to understand how this machine works, because that's sort of like 70% of the battle, really. It's a bit like when you understand how a machine works, like when you know that you, with a motor car, you get in and you turn the engine on and you put it into gear and you press the accelerator and release the brake, rather than standing behind and pushing it. When you understand how it works, you wouldn't even dream of going back to trying to push the car. You just go, well, that's all right. Obvious. I understand now. That's how it works. There's no other way to use it. So a large part of the battle is to just simply understand that this is how you're designed, how your brain is naturally designed to make your life work out. And then what happens is you go like I did, aha, that makes such complete sense. So the second thing, or really the second and third things to do, what you need to do is eliminate what's causing you to use it the wrong way. And the thing that's causing you to use it the wrong way is the activation of fear. Whenever you feel fear, stress, worry, anxiety, any of those things, you know, because of the way your brain works, that you're activating the wrong part of your brain. You're activating your survival brain. This is activated by something called the sympathetic nervous system. That's what gets activated. And you're shutting down the part of your brain that actually could be in control to give you the best life possible. So you realize that the only enemy you have in your life is fear. And very often they're subconscious, unconscious fears that people aren't even aware of. But it's those feelings of stress, anxiety, frustration. That is your enemy. So you need to do two things. One is eliminate anything that makes you feel bad from the outside. And the second thing is eliminate anything that's already in there that's fooling your brain. Then it's come from your, all of your upbringing and your conditioning and watching the news and what other people are saying about this is bad and that's bad and this could happen and all of these things, you've got to find a way to teach your brain that none of those things are a threat to your survival. If I could give you an analogy, someone comes along to you and says, drink this, you really enjoy it. And you say, well, what is it? And they say, oh, it's hydrochloric acid. And you go, what? Why do you want me to drink that? Oh, everybody else is, well, it's the new drink. Everybody's talking about drinking it. And, you know, you could come along with us and let's all drink it together. And, you know, your family is enjoying it and you can be part of our community. And you say, hang on a moment. Don't you understand? If I drink hydrochloric acid, it's going to damage me.
Mm-hmm.
And they go, no, it won't. Not if you believe, not if you know, it's not that harmful. And everyone else is drinking. You say, look, I don't care what you say. I don't care what the justification is. I don't care if you say to me that I should drink it because my grandmother tells me I should drink it, or I'll be out of favor with everybody that I know if I don't drink it, or I'll be unpopular, or people will hate me. I don't care the justification. I know that if I drink that, it's going to damage me. And it's exactly the same with fear, with stress, and all these negative emotions. When you understand that those feelings activate this wrong part of your brain and shut down the right part of your brain and get you using your brain the wrong way, it's the fear itself, it's those feelings. When you understand that, what are you going to do? You're going to say, doesn't matter what the justification, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that I don't feel that way. And that means I might have to control where I put my attention, who I'm going to talk to, what I'm going to think, what I'm going to switch on, all of those things. And that's really just about changing a habit. You know, people say, well, I can't do that, it's too hard. Well, any new habit's not easy to start with, but once you understand that this is the problem, fear is like the sulfuric or the hydrochloric acid for your system, you're finished because it's going to activate the wrong part of your brain. And so a lot of my coaching, what I actually do is teach people how to break the habit of putting fear from their environment into their life. And then the other thing is how to get inside, see what's already in there that your brain is thinking is making you afraid, and get it to change its perception, change its perspective, and see that unless there's a lion coming for you, there's nothing to be afraid of.
So do you, in your experience working with people, do you feel that these fears, these negative emotions, the stresses, the fears, the worries, the doubts, are they coming from their own internal perceptions most often, that this own internal prison that they are holding themselves in? Or are there more often not things that they have to actually remove from their life that's causing it? Or is it just a perception? Is it more often perception?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, everything is perception.
Yeah.
You know, there is no world out there. It's what your brain thinks everything means.
Yeah.
So if your brain sees that you live in a dangerous world and it's full of uncertainty and you don't know what's going to happen and you have to try and protect yourself because you're afraid of what might happen, and then you're going to be in this state that is totally disempowering. It's not going to open up your creative brain. But of course, one of the things you need to do is you need to stop putting in stuff that makes you feel bad. Mm-hmm. So it's a bit of a combination. You need to stop the input of this negativity that's creating, you know, more negative beliefs about things and more negative feelings. And then once you've got into the habit of doing that, you know, I haven't watched the mainstream news for years and years and years. In fact, since I became homeless. And the funny thing was, my life's only got better. And it's not like I'm missing out on anything. But what I'm not doing is exposing myself to negativity, to anything that makes me feel bad, because unfortunately, you put on the news and what's it trying to tell you? How does it make you feel? It makes you feel bad. So that's a good example. And you really have to get to this ruthless stage almost of saying, I'm not going to drink the hydrochloric acid for my life, which is, I'm not going to put in things that are going to make me feel bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this is all biology. The point is, this isn't airy-fairy, subconscious mind, spiritual stuff. This is physical biology. It's as natural as falling off a cliff, and people say, well, how do I do that? Because how can I let go of my fear? You have to learn to trust. And that comes from understanding how your brain works, but it's an understanding how you work, because it's a bit like if you cut your finger, you don't go, oh, I'm going to die. I don't know what can I do? I need to, You just know that if you put a dressing on it, it's going to heal itself. That's the way it works. You're not trying to make it happen. And all of us all the time, we're trying to make stuff happen. We don't make stuff happen. We have a brain that makes stuff happen. And if we let it do its job, it's going to. You know, an interesting thing was, I thought, now this thing about fear being the enemy, you know, it activates the wrong part of your brain and blocks off the right part of your brain, keeps you stuck. Where have I heard that before? I thought, what about the Bible? The Bible says more than 360 times, 3 words: be not afraid. Be not afraid. Now, it's not saying that as some fancy idea, you know, try not to be so afraid. That's an instruction. This is a user's instruction manual for your brain and how to live your life. Because what it's saying to you is when you feel this emotion of fear, for whatever reason, you activate your sympathetic nervous system, you activate your survival brain, and you shut down the part of your brain, your creative brain, that's going to bring you what you should have in your life. And you're going to stay stuck with problems. So religion tells us this as well.
Yeah. Have you read the book Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill?
No.
It's a fantastic book. Have you read Think and Grow Rich?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's the book he wrote this after Think and Grow Rich.
Okay.
And it was released. It was written back in 1939. It wasn't released until 2011. So it's basically in Think and Grow Rich, he talks about doing masterminds where he had mastermind with other people that were great in history that he looked up to, that were mentors or whatever that he studied. And that's how he was able, I would say that's him tapping into his creative brain and getting to infinite intelligence, right? So he called it masterminding. In the book, he masterminds, and Outwitting the Devil, he masterminds the devil, where he puts into a courtroom scenario where the devil is being cross-examined by him, and he's asking him how he's able to do what he does, how he gets people to fall into sin, into temptation, etc., to basically capture the minds and the souls of individuals that are going to go to hell. And it's just the whole book's a conversation between him. It's him asking questions and the devil answering. It is it's a phenomenal book. But one of the things that the devil talks about is the number one way that he traps people is mentally is through fear. Is fear, fear of anything. And it's like fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of not being worthy, fear of not being enough. And he talks about how he seeps fear through the media, through schools, through church, through your family, through your parents. Like, and he's like, I start kids when they're young. I start getting into their minds and seeping into their minds, because if they can't control their mind, and that's the whole thing, is like, how do you break free of the devil's grasp? He's like, you have to have free thought. You have to be able to control your mind. That's it. And you lose control of your mind when you give into fear. He's like, if I can get you to fear one thing, I can get you to fear everything, because it gets you to not think properly, and it starts you on a path of drifting. And when he says drifting is when basically your actions aren't in line with what you actually want. Like what you're telling yourself, like, I want to be successful, but your actions aren't taking you there. It's because you're drifting. It's because you're acting out of fear. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. Okay, I'll look into it, but he's saying exactly the same thing, that this is biological. Fear locks you into your survival brain and takes away all your power. Because one of the things that happens, if you think about survival, if you're faced with an immediate threat to your life, say a lion comes running out from the bush, what do you have to do to survive in that situation? One thing you have to do is you have to see every threat and danger that exists. You have to be 100% focused on every problem, danger, threat that is there. How big's the lion? Where is it? How far away is it? Is there something else? What's that sound in the grass? So your brain is completely focused on problems, on negativity, and it's very, very shut down and negative. It's not saying your creative brain might go, wow, this is a beautiful forest, and look at all the breeze and all these things. You'd be dead if your brain allowed you to think that. So, and it also takes all the energy from the creative brain, because your brain uses 30% of your energy. It's a very energy intensive thing, but it's going to need the energy from your creative brain to get you to run away or fight the lion. So your focus is very narrow and shut down. And so you think, I am this weak person with lots of problems. There's only bad things in the world. And the other thing that happens from a survival point of view is it makes you totally open to the instructions and directions of other people, particularly authority. Now, can you imagine? Because you can imagine, and this is a biological survival thing as well. If the lions are coming over the hill to the tribe, you need a leader to tell you what to do, and you need to do it without thinking, without blinking, instantly. If you think about it, you might be dead again. And the military uses this. They use fear to get people to obey orders, and it's a biological thing. So all of these things, this is how you control people. The only mechanism, if you want people to get them to do what you want them to do, you make them think that their life is full of problems, that they're a very, very limited person, and that you know what's best for them. And they can only think that when they're stuck in this survival brain state. And again, this is the cause of all. This is who the devil is the part of your brain which is blocking you from seeing who you really are.
Yeah. In the book, the devil explains it very well, I think. And he says the devil's all negative emotion. Yeah. It's like the devil exists in everyone's minds. It's all the negative emotion. He's like, if you think just about every single atom, there's the positive, there's a proton and a neutron. He's like, I am the neutron half of the atom. Yeah. The proton is all my opposition. It's like God is like all positivity. One can't exist without the other, or the atom doesn't exist, right? And so, like in essence, what he's saying is that like I exist within everybody. It just depends on whether you have the free thought to control your emotions, control your mind, and go towards a positive, or give into fear, give into negativity, give into stress, doubt, worries, etc. It's fantastic.
Yeah, you just need to realize that fear is the enemy on a biological level. It's you've got these 4 parts of your brain. You've got this infinite computer that's there for one reason, and one reason only, to ensure that you have the longest life possible. It's wired for your survival. It'll give you everything you need. But if you don't use that part of your brain, you're going to stay stuck. And the only time, as I say, what blocks that part of your brain is fear. This when you feel that emotion, you shut that down. It's like a switch. It shuts that down and activates this part which is out there looking for threats and danger. So when people really get this, as I say, they realize that fear is the enemy, that your only task in life is, get rid of the devil or whatever. Your only job in life is to get rid of your fears. And because when you do, your brain will do the rest. That's what it's there for. But everything, all of this, trying to struggle, trying to work out what to do, trying to think about things, trying to figure stuff out, doing another course, coming up with all these words and all these descriptions and trying to plan things and all that, that all comes from, you're not allowing this infinite part of your brain to do its job. It's all based on fear. I need to work it out in advance. I need to figure it out and make it happen. It's not natural.
Yeah. So anyone that's listening to this, it's fascinating. I mean, this is all completely fascinating, by the way. I love this conversation. But anyone that listens to this, like, this is fascinating. Where do I start? What's the first thing I can do to start using my brain the right way? What would you give to any layman that's first hearing something like this for the first time? What's something practical that they can do, that they can start doing today?
Well, on my website, I've actually got a free mini course, which shows you a very simple 3-part process to unlock your success brain, which is another word for your creative brain. But I think one of the most important things is to realize that wanting it, we're in a world where everyone wants a quick fix. Tell me what to do. It's like your 12-year-old son comes along and says, Dad, can I borrow the car? And because I want to go to a party tonight, can I take the car? And your father says, but hang on, you don't know how to drive it. You need to learn to drive it before you can take it to the party. And their son says, oh yeah, okay, I'll learn to drive it later. Just give me one quick thing on what I can do now to get the car from here to the party tonight. But that's not how it works. Quick fixes are a function of your survival brain, because your survival brain says, what do I need to do instantly right now to solve the problem? The lion is coming at me. I don't want a 10-part strategy. I don't know I need to solve this problem right now. And people are all stuck in this idea. I need a solution right now. I don't want to know that I've got to put in some effort and some time. But anything, If you want to lose weight, this is why diet books sell so well, because people think, well, it's just going to be an instant fix. But of course, it never is. And it's the same with rebalancing your brain, as I call it. You've got to start the process by starting to understand that it's not a quick fix, but you do have this machine that is designed to give you the best life possible. It's designed to make sure you have the minimum amount of problems and stress in your life. That is what it is there for. And once you start to think about that, then you need to find out more about how it works. And then when you find out more about how it works, that leads you down to realize, well, what am I doing? How am I using it the wrong way? Then what do I need to do to start using it the right way? So, and that's why my mission is about educating and saying, this isn't just another sit in a corner and hum and say 3 words or do something with whatever and things will all change. That's not the way it works. You've spent a lifetime training your brain to work in the wrong way. You're not going to change it overnight, but the place to start is by understanding that what you're doing wrong, and by realizing that this is a natural biological thing. You don't need to spend the rest of your life to fix it, but you do need to spend more than a minute, if you like.
Absolutely. Well, I like that. If somebody wants to go to your website or they just want to connect with you and learn more about this, what's your web address, and then what's the best place to connect with you on?
Sure. Well, my website, liamnaden.com, just my name. And everything's on there, my podcast. And as I say, I have a free mini course about how you can start to. The thing about what I've created in this mini course is it gives you an experience, because people go, well, all right, that sounds good in theory. But once you have an experience of seeing your creative brain do its job, you go, wow, that, it's like some proof that this is how it works. So that's what that course is designed to help you do, is to have an experience to start to see your creative brain in action. And that, of course, motivates you want to get more of it, to learn more about how your brain works and to use it in a more effective way. It's like a quick win, if you like.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And the last question I ask all my guest speakers is, you have the opportunity to sit with, learn from, break bread with 3 individuals, anyone in history, alive or deceased. Who are they, and why do you pick those?
I've actually thought about this question quite a bit, and I literally have never been able to come up with anyone else other than the most fascinating person I have ever met, who I talk to on a daily basis, and that's my higher self. If people really want to know that you have this infinite intelligence, just sit down at the beginning or the end of the day, when you're a bit relaxed, just before you go to sleep or just as you wake up, and ask yourself an interesting question and see what answers start to come back. And you'll have some conversations with yourself that you'll go, where did all these ideas come from? Where did this information come from? I had no idea. And it's like you're talking to someone else, and what you're talking to is your higher, the part, your connection to the infinite part of you, the infinite intelligent part of you.
Mm.
And you'll be amazed once we sometimes call it the little, what do we call it? The voice, the quiet voice within,
The still small voice.
Yeah. And once you start to cultivate your relationship with that, which is really your connection to infinite intelligence, you get all the answers you need. You get all, any questions you have, and it's fascinating what you learn from that.
I love that. This is the first time anyone's ever said that answer. I'll tell you that. I like that. Well, Liam, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast. For those of you watching, make sure you go check out and just do the free test, do the free experience. liamnaden.com. Go check it out. And if you're watching to now and you got some value from listening, then do me a favor. Go share this with somebody else that can also learn or get value from it as well. It takes you 30 to 60 seconds to like, review, subscribe, or share, but it means the world to both Liam and I. More people can be affected and tap into that creative brain just by listening, or even reaching out to Liam and taking his coaching or reading his book or doing the test. So thank you so much for watching. This has been the Be the Difference podcast. I'm your host, Greg Birch. Until next time, we'll see you.